Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Aesthetic and Wellness Edge. I'm your host, Bethany Gifford, and today we're diving into the fascinating world where natural science, spa innovation, and a special type of mud meet. But first, a word from our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by New Era Intel. At New Era Intel, we help medical spas, dermatology clinics, and plastic surgery practices who are struggling with inconsistent patient retention, underutilized CRM systems, and manual systems that hold back your clinic's growth potential so they can finally increase quality repeat bookings, streamline operations with AI automation, and grow predictable monthly revenue with the right systems and strategy. They're able to create a premium, seamless patient experience while freeing up their team to focus on what they do best. If you would like to take your business to the next level, head over to neweraintel.com to get started.
My guest today is Michael Beresford, founder of Moor's Spa. It's a globally recognized skincare and spa brand inspired by Austria's 15,000-year-old healing mud. From Michael's early days in UK marketing to pioneering a natural professional-grade product line in Canada, Michael has helped redefine what clean beauty and eco-luxury really means. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, you have to take us back to the beginning. What on earth drew you to Austrian Moor substance?
Okay. Right. So going back many years ago, as you can tell, I'm not a local boy, originally from the UK. I did some marketing work back in the 1980s for a company in the UK that sold a sort of similar line of products, but much narrower and sort of different in many ways. But that's what first kind of introduced me to this substance called Moor. It comes from Austria, and as you said, it's a many thousands of year old herbal mineral healing mud that is used extensively in Europe, primarily in a sort of medical setting. It's used for treating all kinds of different types of inflammatory conditions, ranging from arthritis to rheumatism to fibromyalgia, all kinds of things like that. So even though there's a huge amount of research that's been done on the benefits of Moor therapy in Europe, and it's used widely in spas, hospitals, clinics, and so on, we don't make any actual specific claims about the benefits of our products, even though there is such a large body of research on the overall subject itself. It's been used in that sort of therapeutic setting for literally centuries in Europe, and in fact nowadays, if you have a condition, any kind of inflammatory condition like that, you can go and see your doctor and they can recommend a 2-week trip to a Moor clinic. They're called Moorbad, B-A-D, means spa in German. So you can go to a Moorbad for 2 weeks to have all kinds of different treatments using this mud, and they're paid for by your medical insurance plan.
Wow.
So it's very much a part of sort of medical culture in Europe. And I came over to Canada in the sort of early 90s, about 1993. And at that time, the spa industry was just starting to kick in. Like it was, I think back then there were probably 5 spas in Vancouver, and now there's probably 500 of them.
Yeah.
And so I just had this, I remembered about this Moor mud product that I'd been introduced to when I'd been doing some marketing work in the 80s. And I had this idea that this would be a really good sort of concept to build a product line around for the spa industry. And that's really how the whole thing started.
That's amazing. I know I had the opportunity to do a little research on this Moor mud, and it is packed with all sorts of good things. Gosh, I wish the United States insurance companies would do that for us. That would be
Yeah,
incredible.
really. I think that's probably a few years off. But I think it's because there's a whole sort of history of use in Europe of this substance. In fact, you can trace it back to even the sort of Roman and Celtic times back in before 0 AD, when back in those days, soldiers who got injured would go and not bury themselves, but immerse themselves in some of these deposits, and they would get sort of tremendous healing benefits. And the reason why they did that was because local people used to notice that when animals were injured, like deer or wolves, they would go and kind of immerse themselves in these Moor mud uh, kind of areas, and they, like a day later, they would come out and they seemed to be completely revitalized. And so people thought, oh, if they can do it, maybe we can as well. In fact, they found the remains of wooden baths in some of these Moor deposits, dating back to that era. And around those baths, they found treasure that's being sort of thrown into the Moor by these soldiers or people, anybody who was injured. And they figured that it was like a gesture of sort of gratitude to the gods of whatever they perceived as being the reason for the healing process. So there's a whole history of use. In fact, in the 16th century, there was a, a, a philosopher, or in those days, like a philosopher was also a doctor. His name was Paracelsus, and he was the first person actually in the Western world to write down a sort of theory of medicine. It was called the Quinta Essentia Vitae in Latin. And he based a lot of the theories of this medical theory on the properties of this Moor mud. And at that time, it became incredibly popular. Like these little clinics started to pop up all over the place in Austria and other parts of Central Europe. And so the history of its use as a sort of therapeutic medium has been around for literally hundreds of years. And so, of course, over here, very few people until we came on the scene really knew much about it. But now it's becoming much more widely used and recognized, particularly in the spa environment, because to introduce it into a sort of medical sort of environment would be much more difficult because of all the sort of research that you'd have to go through and all the processes. So we figured that a spa environment was a much better kind of arena to put it into. Yeah.
Yeah, smart move. I mean, not only are we going for beauty, but we all love natural products, and I know you're really big on natural ingredient-based
Yeah.
brand. You talked about how that really resonates with you, especially with some new biodegradable options that you're looking into. Tell
Right.
us a little bit about that, and
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, well, so when we first, actually going back to 1994, in the very, very early days of the company, in fact, before even the current company came into existence, the first thing we did was we started to import some products that were being produced in Austria by one of the main Moor mud sort of locations and companies over there. And the Moor mud itself was fantastic, but the other products they were producing didn't kind of quite match the sort of level of complete naturalness that the Moor mud had. So in those days, in Europe, you didn't have to declare all the ingredients that were on the products. So nobody really knew what was in them. But when we imported them into North America, we had to declare all the ingredients. And we realized very quickly that they just didn't have the same degree of naturalness. And I've always been very, very much concerned about the sort of potentially toxic effect of many chemicals that are used in our industry. And so at that time, I decided that we would need to start producing the products ourselves so we could make them as natural as possible. And so at that time, we, hired chemists and we created a lab and started to produce our own products under our own brand. And we're sort of I'd say almost OCD about natural ingredients and the whole concept of product safety. And as time has gone by, it's becoming more apparent that more and more people, particularly younger people, are concerned about this. Now in the old days, people would go into a shop or a spa or a salon, and they would just look at the product and they would be attracted by the branding and the color of the product and maybe the smell of the product. But now so many more people are going in and they're looking at the back of the product and looking at the ingredient list, and they may not have, a degree in chemistry, or they may not have full understanding about product ingredients, but they can get a sort of feeling about whether these products are natural or not. And so that's become more of a concern, and that's something that we're very, very passionate about. And we uh, are constantly looking at research on different ingredients. We're constantly looking at things like the Environmental Working Group's Skin Deep website, which has a kind of, which is a real library showing a lot of information about ingredients and what potentially harmful effects they can have. And so, we are completely dedicated to making sure that nothing goes in our products which is potentially harmful, which could be either carcinogenic or allergenic or toxic in some other kind of way. And so all our products, we only use ingredients that are derived from natural sources. So in fact, on all our products, if you buy one of our products, it comes with a guarantee inside it, which is basically me as the owner of the company stating that there's nothing in this product which is derived from petroleum or which is produced using purely synthetic means. And it actually lists all of the ingredients on that guarantee and shows you exactly where each ingredient comes from, what plant or mineral each ingredient comes from. So it then gives the consumer the confidence to know that this is truly a fully natural product. Often we see companies, they claim, oh, this product is 95% natural, or this product is 70% organic. But you always have to ask the question, well, what's that 5% that's not natural? Or what's that 30% that's not organic? And so our whole focus has been on producing 100% natural source products. And now all of our products are 100% natural source. They're all certified by an organization called Clean, which has a list of about 2,000 ingredients that you cannot use in your product if you want to have the certification. And every product we have is certified by Clean. And then about 5 years ago, after we had kind of completely developed our line and made sure that everything was 100% natural, then my attention turned to the packaging, because I started to just become more and more aware of the problem of plastic proliferation and microplastics, and started to see all these images of, whales in the ocean which were, had, imbibed plastics, and that their stomach was full of plastics, and so on and so forth. So I started to kind of look at that, and I'd always had the sort of, I guess, impression that as long as your products or your packaging is recyclable, that, it was fine, because they go to recycling location, and then they end up getting recycled into another plastic container, and so on. But I discovered very quickly that unfortunately only about 10% of recyclable plastics actually end up getting recycled. And so it's a real major problem, and it's becoming something that more and more people are aware of now, particularly since they found, microplastics are in our brains, they're in, the mother's milk, they're on the top of Mount Everest, they're at the, the South and North Pole, they're everywhere, they're just ubiquitous. And so it's a massive problem, and unfortunately plastic packaging is probably the biggest contributor to plastic proliferation and microplastics and so on. So I spent years, literally 2 years, trying to figure out how we could get around that. And I looked at glass, I looked at different types of paper packaging, I looked at bioplastics, which sound kind of hopeful, but actually it turns out that bioplastics that are made from sugar or from hemp, for example, they are still plastics, and they still are subject to the fact that they're not really biodegradable. They'll break down into microplastics, and they're not biodegradable. So it was a little bit kind of challenging and disappointing at first when I kind of discovered this. But about 5 years ago, I guess, somewhere like that, I was back in the UK visiting my parents, and I just happened to see an article on the television about a company just outside of London called Symphony Environmental. And they had basically produced this material that you can actually add into plastics when it's being manufactured. And it causes those plastics to be fully biodegradable. So that instead of taking 500 years to break down, and they never actually fully biodegrade, they just break down into microplastics. Instead of that happening, the plastic literally biodegrades within about 2 years, and it degrades back into its original components of hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and so on. So there's no microplastics left. And also, it is recyclable. So if it gets into a recycling cycle, then it's fine. It just can be recycled like other plastics. But if it ends up in a landfill or ends up in the ocean, then within 2 years, it'll be completely disappeared. It'll just completely break down into its component parts, its component chemicals, if you like, or not chemicals, but elements, its component elements, yeah.
Wow.
So now we found a company, or several different companies that have been willing to change their plastic production processes so that they can incorporate this material, it's called D2W, into the plastics. And so now we have about over 90%, about 93% of all of our packaging materials now have this D2W material in them and are therefore fully biodegradable. So yes, we feel it's really important. You know, it's such a massive problem, and it's very easy for companies to swipe it under the rug and just pretend that, you know, if they set up a recycling program, that's going to take care of the problem. It's just not going to take care of the problem. And so we feel this is like a major development, certainly for us as a brand, but I think it's something that more and more companies need to start taking a closer look at.
Absolutely. People definitely need to be following suit. I mean, we were
Yeah,
just so misled back in the day, recycle all your stuff, and we just thought it disappeared. Little did we know,
right.
all of a sudden they're
Yeah,
like, "Oop, it's in the ocean," and everybody's dying.
yeah,
We're like, "Wow,
exactly. I
what a
know it's kind of it's very troubling. Yeah.
what a lie." I know. Well, that's incredible.
Mm.
You're keeping that purity in your products and in your packaging. I think that's amazing, and a lot of people really need to follow suit with that for sure. So you've also developed something unique, the Moor Spa Earth Therapy concept. What inspired you to create such a turnkey business model rather than just a traditional franchise?
We wanted to kind of develop a product line so that you could run a whole spa using just our products, right? So about 3 or 4 years ago, once we'd finished sort of developing the biodegradable packaging for our products, that was the next thing I turned my attention to, because at that point we had a whole skincare line with, you know, basically everything from masks, cleansers, toners, moisturizers, eye care, serums, specialty products, ampules. It was a very complete sort of skincare line. And then we had all these different body treatments. So, you know, over the years, in addition to the Moor mud, we've also added several other types of therapeutic muds that I've kind of come across, either from traveling in other countries, or people have approached us to ask us if we can develop products using these different types of substances. So just to give you a couple of examples, we have this amazing gemstone clay that comes from a very remote part of Vancouver Island, which is kind of just off the coast from where I am. And they have there's a volcanic mountain it's completely dead now, but there's this whole layer of gemstone material which over thousands of years has fed this green clay. And so this green clay has about 12 different gemstone materials in it, all of which have sort of energetic properties, apparently. And so we have this gemstone clay, which is very unique. And we produced a body wrap mud from it, and also would in the process of producing a facial mask from it. And actually last year, this gemstone clay body mask that we have won the best body mask, the best new body mask product on like an award for that by a company called WellSpa 360. So that was quite exciting. So that's one of them. And then another one, which is really interesting, is we have this substance called calzyme. And it's literally roughly around 6 million years old. And it comes from the Sierra Nevada mountains in just south of us, down in Idaho. I think it's in Idaho where the source is. And what happened was I'm not sure how many years ago, but probably 20 or 30 years ago, there was a physicist who was conducting radiological surveys of the geology of this area. And what he noticed was that about 100 feet below ground, there was a layer of organic material. And he thought, what the heck is this organic material doing in the middle of a mountain range, right? And when they drilled down to find out what it was, they discovered that it was actually fossilized kelp, because it turns out that, millions of years ago, the whole west coast of North America was at the bottom of the ocean.
Yep.
And so there's this whole kind of layer of fossilized kelp material, which is now it's basically like a cream colored powder. And it's very rich in calcium, which is this particular type of calcium is very easily absorbed by the body. And it's also rich in enzymes and also other types of minerals. So it's called calzyme. It's short for kelp enzyme. And we were approached by this company, probably about 4 years ago, to ask us if we could create a body wrap product and a facial mask product. And we did. We created these two products using this material, and it has a fantastic effect, not just on revitalizing the skin, but on brightening the skin. It has a very powerful brightening effect on the skin. So it's very popular with a lot of our distributors, particularly in Southeast Asia, where they want to make their skin look lighter. And the thing is, nobody's happy with their skin, right? So people in
No.
Southeast Asia, they want to look whiter, and over here we want to look darker, so we go to tanning beds and so on. So nobody's happy with their skin, which is what drives the whole industry. But anyway, so we have this substance called calzyme. So in that way, we have several different types of muds that we've introduced into our line, in addition to the Moor mud, that we can use for different types of body wrap treatments and so on, which all have wonderful kind of therapeutic rebalancing effects on the skin. So combining all this together, the fact that we have a whole skincare line, we have a whole body treatment regimen, we also have a hair and scalp line, a mani-pedi line, we have massage products, we have aromatherapy, we have basically everything that you need to run a whole spa. We don't have sort of, nail color, nail polish, that kind of thing, but in terms of treatments that are done in the spa, we have everything. So at that point, we started to look at developing a concept spa model that we could then basically make available to people on a wider scale. So it just turned out that around that time, one of my old associates who used to work for my company in the US, she had got married, and she'd been working with her husband in the construction industry for the past 15 years. And she had just happened to call me up out of the blue and said, Michael, I've been doing this, working in the construction industry, and it's great. I've made some money and it's wonderful, but I really want to get back into the spa industry, because she was a massage therapist. She loved doing massage treatments. She loved the whole spa kind of culture and so on. And she said, well, do you have any ideas of how I could get back into the industry? And I said, well, it just so happens that we've created this sort of whole model of a concept spa. It's called Moor Spa Earth Therapy Concept Spa. And so I sent her all the information, and she called me back literally the next day and said, I want to do it. So that was like in May, I think, of 2023. And by the January, she had opened, like within 6 months. So what we created was, like, here's everything you need for your spa. Here's your product line. Here's all your treatment protocols. Here's your menu. Here's your training. Here's all your equipment. Here's your color scheme. Here's your branding. Here's your website. Everything you need to get going. And so we set up this first one in Hilton Head in South Carolina, which is where this friend of my dad is from. And so over the last couple of years, we've been sort of developing it and ironing all the bugs out of the system. And now we're getting to the point where we're very close to basically making it available on a much wider scale. And so it's kind of like a franchise in that sense, but it's not like a franchise in the sense that we don't charge a royalty for this, because our business model is that we make our money by selling products. So these concept spas become a vehicle for both using our products in their services and treatments and also selling the products to their customers. So we don't need to charge a royalty like most like regular franchises do. So this is quite attractive for people because, you know, one of the big one of the big challenges for many franchise operations is that they always have to think in the back of their minds that they're going to have to give whatever percentage, whether it's 2 or 5%, whatever it is, to the franchisor at the end of the month or the end of the year. Whereas with what we're proposing with this model, that is not applicable at all. So that in a nutshell, that's really what our concept spa is about. And so, as I said, we have this first one. You can look it up at moorspa.hiltonhead.com. It's absolutely fabulous place. It's doing really well. People absolutely love it. It won, I think it was voted one of the top 3 or something spas in South Carolina recently. So it's just doing incredibly well. And we're now getting very close to the point where we can make it available on a wide scale.
Well, I know a lot of people would be interested in that for sure, especially in the
Okay.
beauty industry. We're always working with clients or saying we want to expand or turn ours into a franchise. And I don't think people realize how complicated that can get
Yeah,
sometimes. So
really.
for
Yeah.
you to have an absolute turnkey, just here you go. Yeah, I'm sure after this show, you're going to be getting quite a few calls. Well, I wanted to touch base on something we had talked about, an integrated spa system that you have.
Right. Yeah.
How does this technology kind of enhance the treatment that your clients are already getting? And I know you had mentioned it added a few things like red light therapy and hydrotherapy combined. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about.
Sure. So this came about, I guess, from 2 things. One is, you know, over the years being in the industry, I've sort of obviously become very aware of how body treatments, specifically body wrap treatments, are done in spas. And, you know, it's fairly kind of archaic in many ways and not
Pretty
necessarily
messy.
pretty messy and not necessarily hugely enjoyable for the client in many cases, because what they usually do is that, you know, you go and take a shower, you come in, you get on a table, then you get exfoliated, and then you have the mud applied onto your body, and all of that is fine. But then at that point, what they do is they usually wrap you up in like either plastic film or mylar or some material which is designed to keep the mud that's on the body moist and cause it to penetrate the nutrients in it to penetrate into the tissues. And then you lie there like a cocoon, you know, for like 40 minutes. You can't move. You're so completely stuck and wrapped up in this plastic. And then they come back, they unwrap the plastic. Then you have to get off the table, go and have a shower, then come back to the table again, and then have like a body lotion put on you to finish off the treatment. So that was one thing that I thought there's got to be a better way of doing it than this. Then the second thing that happened was that I have a very good friend in down in Iowa who was a hydrotherapy expert, and he developed this concept of using steam as a way to wrap the body instead of having plastic. And also, he had this sort of what's called a Vichy shower, which is like a six shower head system that basically massages the body with water, strategically placed parts along the body. The problem was that it was what he had done was very how can I describe it? It was just very kind of homemade looking. And so what I wanted to do was to take this idea and develop it into something which would be more appropriate for the spa environment. So what we did was we worked with a fiberglass company close to where we are in Vancouver, and we created First of all, a fiberglass, what's called wet table. So it's a fiberglass table which is completely waterproof, and it's really comfortable. It has like a foam bed and then waterproof vinyl covering. And then we also developed a canopy, like a fiberglass canopy that sits on the bed, and it's on a rail system, so you can move it backwards and forwards down the table. And when it gets to the bottom of the table, it kind of can swivel into an upright position, so it sits away from the table. So now what you can do is that you can come in, you can get on the table, you can have the same exfoliation, you can get the mud applied to the body, but instead of being wrapped up in plastic, what we do is we bring the canopy down onto the table, and then it just rolls along to completely cover the body up to the neck. The head remains outside of it. And the whole canopy then gets filled up with aromatherapy infused steam. And the steam circulates around the inside of the canopy, and the steam opens up the pores so the nutrients in the mud can absorb much more effectively and efficiently into the body. And so instead of taking 40 minutes with the mud on, you only need to have the mud on and the steam on for about 20 minutes, because it's just much more effective, much more efficient at delivering the nutrients into the body. After 20 minutes, you switch off the steam, and then you switch on the Vichy shower. So there's a Vichy shower that runs along the inside of the canopy, and you just switch on the water supply, and then the shower heads can move from side to side, so you can apply the water both along the side and then the middle and then the other side of the body. And the water not only gives you like a hydrotherapy massage, giving you all the benefits of hydrotherapy, but it also rinses off most of the mud from the body. And you usually do that for about maybe 10 minutes. And then you slide the canopy off the table, rotate it into its upright position. And then there's a handheld shower, so that the person giving the treatment can just go in and remove any mud that's left on the body using this handheld shower. So the client never has to leave the table, right? They don't have to get off and go and have a shower either beforehand or after the body wrap treatment. So they stay on the table the whole time. It's just really comfortable. I mean, it feels amazing when you're in that steam with the aromatherapy and the mud on it. It just feels like you're in heaven. And then when you have the Vichy shower hydrotherapy rinsing off the mud and giving you that hydrotherapy massage, it's just like the icing on the cake. So the beauty of this is that you don't have to build a wet room for this. Like normally when you have like a Vichy shower and wet tables, you have to build what's called a wet room, where you have tiles down all the walls. You have to have gradiated flooring to a central drain so that the water can drain away. And before you even put any equipment in, you're down maybe $20,000-$30,000 just from building the wet room out. Then you have to put in all the other equipment. So you're investing, probably somewhere in the region of at least $50,000 to create the room necessary to do this. And then, even then, you really wouldn't have a steam. You'd probably have to have a separate steam room. So with this system, you get all the benefits of the steam room and the Vichy shower hydrotherapy, but you can put the equipment just into a regular room as long as you've got a hot and cold water supply and a drain available. So if you've got like a sink in the room, then we can just attach it to the hot and cold water supply. We can attach the drain to the drain that comes underneath the sink. And we've even had this system set up on a trade show floor. So, you can set it up literally anywhere as long as the room is big enough. It only has to be about 12 feet long by about 10 feet wide. And then you've got like a world-class hydrotherapy body wrap system. You can also do hair and scalp treatments on it. You can also do regular massage on it. And we've also recently added a red light and infrared therapy capsule that you can also put onto the same table to offer red light therapy and infrared therapy on the same equipment. So it's really versatile, and it's something that now we've just really finished it, and we've got it set up in our first spa in Vancouver, at a luxury spa here in Vancouver. And now we're going to start making it available. We can start producing it for anybody who wants to have one. So there's a nice demonstration video that you can watch, and we can send information including pricing to anybody who's interested. And you can lease it. You can lease the whole thing for like under $500 a month. So, you only have to do a few, like 2 or 3 treatments, and you paid for the equipment, and it's leased to own. So at the end of the lease, you own it outright. Yeah.
That is amazing. Well, Michael, you have so much to offer, not just an incredible natural product, but an amazing innovative spa, the chances of not technically franchising, but being able to expand your spa theory. And
Yeah.
now this, some amazing innovative product that people can lease to own. That is
Yeah.
incredible. I know a lot of people are going to be very interested in getting a hold of you. So thank you for this incredible, insightful conversation and sharing your journey. And for anybody that wants to learn more or connect with you, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, they can go to our website, moorspa.com. There's an area on our website where if you're a professional, you can register as a professional. There's also all our contact information there on our website. So if you're interested in the concept spa, there's a page on the concept spa on our website that you can then contact us via that. If you're interested in the integrated spa system, you would need to register as a spa professional on our site, and there's a page on the integrated spa system there. But probably the easiest thing to do is just to send me an email. It's very simple. It's michael@moorspa.com. And then, yeah, that'll come straight to me.
Well, you guys heard it today, and all those links will be in the show notes below. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow spa or wellness entrepreneur. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.